Welcome to Creative Questions, the podcast where we attempt to review various creative projects we ourselves are part of and or other people's unique creations in an attempt to celebrate the creative inspiration in all of us. I am Desiree Silver, your host and owner of New Nerd Novelties and hashtag Own Your Weird Lifestyle brand.
And I'm your co-host, Liam Hewlett. Back at it again. Happy Halloween. Oh, belated, I guess.
The lovely people hammering last time.
They've been working on a thing for like a month. I hope that for whoever's living in that home's sake, that they actually finish it soon. But also for yours as well, because, dear Lord, talk about taking your time.
I'll say. So what have you been up to? Do you want to tell first? Because we got a bit of stuff.
Whereas the last time we had a 2-week gap, I didn't have that much that I was looking to accomplish. This time around, I had a D&D session within those 2 weeks, and there was a lot of stuff that I did need to get finished, and I felt like I actually did a lot in that time. There was a lot of progress that I made, enough so that I've got myself set up for the next 2 D&D sessions, because there was a lot of combat that I had to establish, and it turned out pretty well. So one of the things that I've got them doing at the moment is their primary home base of operations, the main settlement that's called Solocolas. It has become under siege, and they're running out of food, water, and at a rapid pace because there's so many refugees that have joined into the settlement for the winter. So their objectives are to be a relief force. They're trying to bring magical means of creating food, water, and provisions for as many as they can into the settlement. They're trying to sneak it or break through the lines to get into the settlement. The settlement itself has very strong magical defenses that prevent the siegers from actually entering in, even stronger than your normal fortress walls. So if they can get to the touchdown, to the finish line, then they'll be safe inside of this protective circle. But they have to get there first. And the area that they're going through is a snow-covered forest full of beasts and were creatures, because that's who's currently besieging the settlement, is a bunch of werewolves and boars and rats and tigers and all different manner of were creatures that came out from a jungle. So to establish that, I knew that they were going to be fighting a lot of were creatures, which meant that I needed a lot more beasts and a lot more were creatures, because I only had a very limited amount. So I painted a while back the were boar and the were bear and the were rat, and I think I showed those during a podcast at one time. But I also made some werewolves. I made a whole bunch more boars. I had a saber-toothed tiger that I painted up, and then I had some more winter terrain that I made too for this. Plus, I had to lay out the board of basically making a map and making the approach to the settlement in how very similar to the last thing that I did. It's sort of like its own miniature board game of them trying to get to the settlement, and there's many different avenues for them to be able to approach it from. Some less obvious than others, but all of them have their own unique challenges and encounters along the way. So some encounter might prove to be too difficult for them, or they might sneak past it, in which case they'll take an alternate route rather than the straight line directly there. So yeah, I've done a lot besides the challenge that is our main talking point for this episode. Just for the D&D stuff alone, there was a lot of writing, a lot of preparation that went into it.
Awesome.
How about yourself?
So we haven't talked in 2 weeks, and I was up in Kamloops for a week, so I've had a lot of stuff to talk about. My former employer gave us the opportunity to be part of this group called Thrive, and what they do is they help you on your next career path. So they either help you do resumes or look for jobs or interview. Or for me personally, I was looking into their entrepreneurial business stuff, and they give you a certain number of points for free, which worked out to 109,000 points on their side, which, from what I can tell, was probably $1,000 to $3,000 worth of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. So I looked into it. I wasn't really going to use it because I was you could go to school or you could do all this resume stuff. I'm like, well, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I've already got the business. What am I going to use this for? So they kept calling me because it's going to expire. I've had it for a full year and it'll be done in December 1st. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see what they have. So I looked at their entrepreneurial stuff and they have, this is the stuff I bought with the points with the help of the advisor. I basically bought almost everything they have for entrepreneurship. I'm going to get business incorporation for free online, and they're going to help me walk through that. I'm going to get business coaching with one-on-one half-hour sessions and access to this other company's complete stock of how-tos. I've got 3 logo accesses, which I've got one of them up there, Naughty Nerd Novelties. I sent you all 3, but the other 2 are Witches of Wisdom and the New Creative Questions. And that's an online, basically logo generator that I clicked through, which was a lot easier than Photoshop to make these. And they're mine. So they're licensed to me, which is nice. All for free. And then they're also getting me a headshot, like professional headshots as well. Yeah, I'm like kind of scared of that one because I don't like cameras, but hey,
just go in costume.
Yeah, well, you need to have headshots for when I eventually write my book, or like stuff, that professional things like that. If I want
for your website, it would be nice too.
Yeah, and for your website, and if I want to be a speaker, which I do eventually, you need to have those professionally. So that's cool. Never had a professional photo shoot, not since we were in high school for graduation. And then what else? They gave me, I asked them for Adobe Photoshop, the full suite, because the suite's like $100 to $150 a month. They got me 8 months for free.
Wow.
So I was pretty happy with that because that's a lot of money. And they also got me 1,000 business cards.
Wow.
Front and back. Yeah, so I'm like milking it. So I'm excited about that, but at the same time, it's kind of scary. So I talked to the guys about the business incorporation because I don't know much about it, which I think I'm going to do better than Soul because, one, it costs more. So if I'm getting it for free, might as well do it. As well as if you or mom or dad want to work for my business, I can pay you and it'll work out because the business is a separate entity.
Right.
So I do have to do taxes for myself and the business, but the business takes all liability too. So if someone wants to sue the business, they're not suing me personally, and if the business goes bankrupt, I don't go bankrupt. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I think Dad probably has some experience with that because he's had his own, at least 2 businesses that he's had to register, but I think he had to do it through City Hall up here.
Yeah, his is sole, I think, and not incorporated. Like when you do incorporated, it's a little bit different. But the good thing also, the reason that cemented it for me as I looked into it, you can have a healthcare spending account for you and your employees, and that's all written off.
Nice.
And considering we all have health issues, I'm leaning that way. You're supposed to have a business meeting with all your shareholders and your director like once or twice a year. I already know how to do that because I was in Job's Daughters, and I'm going to be the sole. So even if I do sell shares, I still know what I'm doing. So I'm excited about it. There might be like more business. You do have to do your taxes every year separately for the business, so that costs a little bit. Like there's individual costs yearly, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I do wonder about that because there's a lot of benefits for owning your own business as well. Like there's a lot of write-ups that you can put on that. So I don't know how that interacts with corporation.
Well, considering I'm not going to be making much money personally anyway on my own side, and you don't have to pay taxes even with the business being incorporated until $30,000 a year, I think I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it means I get to put you guys as employees and, pay you something if you want to help me out at the markets and stuff, which I prefer if people were actually paid. So,
right.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. I mean, it's a lot, though. This is a lot.
So I've made stuff you've been working on for the last 2 weeks on?
Yeah. I mean, I made 3 logos. I worked on over 3,000 words for my website because I mapped it out. I have 18 different categories. I still have to write 500 words for each. So I did at least 6 of those already. Things like magnets, pins. Yes, I had 500 words for magnets. That's interesting, yeah. Basically, by the end, I'll have written a full book. And this is why people don't do it, but at the same time, that's why my search optimization, I'm going to be #1 in Google, is because no one does this. Like,
Right.
it's better to put yourself up there, right?
That's under the advice of your friend Tila, right?
Yeah, and she's made more than one website and knows how to work the system of search engine optimization, SEO.
She's a much more literate person in that regard than either of those.
Yeah. Well, with the Thrive thing, I could have bought a website through them. Yeah, a slightly more complicated or a really regular one. But the website I do want eventually that she's helping with me is going to be super complex. So I'm more likely to let her do it because I want things like a section for members and like blog and podcast. Like, it's more complicated than that. And I'll be selling directly from the website. So that's all a lot more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm excited about it. I mean, the making of the logos was fun. It's just been a lot of work, that's all. I'm going to come visit you guys on Saturday for a week around Remembrance Day. And I'm mostly going to relax.
Yeah, my vacation's coming up starting next week. So.
Yeah, I've decided that the anxiety dreams are telling me I'm going a little too fast. So when I come up to visit you guys, it's always going to be a relaxing time. But I'm pretty proud of myself. And then this lovely challenge we have. You want to go into that?
Sure, yeah. I'll, how we got started on it, I was the one that proposed the idea. I wanted, since you were going to be up for our Halloween party, which you were, about a week or so ago, you were going to be coming up for the party. I figured we could establish ourselves a little bit of an activity. Something that we wouldn't be doing just on our own, because we have our own things that we work on, and it's mostly, at least for me, a matter of necessity. But I figured it would be nice if we had something to get us a little bit out of our comfort zones, maybe to get us to make something that we don't usually make. And so my idea was that we would, while you were up here, choose something around the house that we could use for a craft and just take that thing and make something out of it. Because it's been quite a bit of time since I've made a recycled craft anyway. Besides having some recycled parts go into my crafts always. This was very much we gave each other the materials, and then each of us had to think of something to do with those materials. And it had to be with all of the material. And mostly featuring that material as like the primary. So,
and you could add stuff, but you couldn't minus stuff.
Yes, yeah. So the only thing I didn't use, if you want to know what Desiree chose for me, she gave me a pack of old trading cards. They were Warhammer 40k trading card game, a collectible card game from 2002 or something, it said on the wrapper. And you had those lying around the house, so you gave those to me, as well as a used Coca-Cola cardboard container. That was my material to use for this project. And the only thing I didn't use from that entire project was the wrapper on the cards. The rest of it all got used up.
I think that's fair. Yeah. That's allowed.
I didn't even think of it. I probably could have involved it in some way, but I just opened it up, took the cards out, and that was that. And so what I gave you was a bottle full of bottle caps. A bottle of bottle caps.
A jam jar with the lid.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about yours, or do you want me to talk about mine first?
Well, why don't we talk about yours first? What got you to make what you, like, when you saw the bottle full of bottle caps, what did you think? What was your first thought?
Well, I was already looking up things to do with bottle caps because I have so many. One of our family friends actually saved a whole bunch for me. He used to put bottle caps on his tree. So I have got a giant box of bottle caps at home right now. And I've got ideas to use for him, but I would always love more. So I was looking through Pinterest, and I saw that someone had made bottle caps look like a little pitcher plant, like the little Venus flytraps. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. I like that idea. So when you gave me so many in a jar, I decided to make flytraps coming out of a jar.
Yeah, and I see the picture here. It looks like it turned out really well.
Yeah, Dory's pretty damn proud of it. He's like, you're going to win. I'm like, it's not a race. It's not a...
Yeah. It's not a competition, but if we're voting, I'd say you probably did win this one.
Liam says I won. Anyway, so what I did was I spray painted all of the bottle caps with a base coat, the same type that Liam uses for his models, a black.
Mm-hmm.
And then I painted the round side green and the inside pink with regular paints, which was a pain in the ass because it's about 3 or 4 layers each. I didn't have spray paint for those. Spray paint is preferred.
Yeah,
and
or
then,
like a good primer for the metal boots. Yeah.
Well, the primer was good. It showed up through the paint. The paint wasn't as good as the primer. So yeah, so that was cool. And then I airbrushed them and made them look more realistic. And as I was looking through the house for other things, I spray painted the lid black as well. You can kind of see it in the pictures so that you could see the lid was black. And I removed.
Is that what you used for the base?
I used not cardboard. It's like a thicker version of cardboard. It's
like cardboard?
Yeah, it's a thick cardboard. And then I added foam. You know, like foam, paper foam, the little paper foam.
Right.
And then I made it up on an angle by using actually some of the bottle caps under there.
Oh, okay.
So I stuck some of the extra bottle caps because there was a lot of bottle caps underneath there. And then I made the jar, I ripped off the label with some vinegar and scraping, and I printed off the fly wings print from online instead of having to make my own. I went and looked for one. I'm like, what should it be? Should it be like mushrooms? Then I don't have to make mushrooms. No. So I did fly wings because that makes sense.
It's a fly trap, yeah.
Yeah, for fly traps. And I found the moss and I found the floral wire. That's what the funky wire is that goes
That's
into
what that is, the vines.
Yeah, it's a nice thick floral wire that I actually found by accident while I was looking for something else. That's the great thing about being in a craft house. And then I thought I saw flies because I went through all of my Halloween stuff recently and I gave it away. Not all of it, but a serious closet full to my friends. And I went through it and one of them was scared of spiders. So I had to pull all the spiders out so that I wouldn't give her the spiders. And I found the flies while I was there. So I'm like, sweet, I got flies for my fly traps. I'm definitely doing this. So I went and found my flies. And you think styrofoam's horrible? The white stuff? Have you ever used the floral foam before? The green stuff?
Yes. That was one of the... it's terrible. It shaves off like it's
while you're touching it.
Yeah, it's like dusty. It's kind of like a condensed form of dust. It's horrible.
That's what
that
I
was
used
also
in
something
this.
that I tried to use, not understanding most people use pink polystyrene because it was available in the house.
Well, that and you can squish it with your finger or round it with your finger. I did that today. That's what's underneath there, inside the bottle and underneath the bottle, so they can be stuck in there. I'm used to using it, but it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Especially if you move it too much, it just becomes crumpled. Like it's just done.
But if you use hot glue and you stick it on the ends of things like this flower foam, it'll stick in there and keep it 3D and keep them up. So that's what I used. As well as the bottle caps that are under there. And there's even a rock from the landlady's garden in the back. Yeah. And I thought of like folding some of them over because that's what they did in the Pinterest one. Is they actually took the individuals and folded them over. Mm-hmm. But then Dory's like, well, when I thought you were going to do this, I thought you were going to use 2 because they'd be bigger and they'd have a bigger mouth. And he's like, oh. So I did some of them with the big mouths and some with the smaller ones.
I see that now. Yeah, some of them are folded over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's really cute. And then I found I previously had glow-in-the-dark sand, so I threw some glow-in-the-dark sand in there and some glow-in-the-dark puff paint so that some of it glows.
Nice.
Yeah, and there's one little glow-in-the-dark spider, because I found that in my resin stuff. I collect a lot of little things. One, because I like little things. I have an obsession with things that are small and cute. Ever since Barbies, I've always liked little things that are small and cute. And so in my resin box, I found some spiders.
Yeah, I think that turned out remarkably well.
I think so. It's not really something I can ship to someone, but I kind of really want to do resin again to make these as necklaces and stuff. But no resin until I move. No. But I will make an Audrey 2 necklace. I want one. So from Little Shop of Horrors, Audrey 2. So
yeah, how are you how would you make it into a necklace? Like just like the little pod itself? Or would you give it like a stem as well?
I think, well, I've got actually mini glass pots, so I could make it come out of a pot if I wanted to. But the one I want is I basically want the head mounted on a resin kind of backboard, and then I have 2 little leaves, so it looks like she's coming out of it. And that would be mine, like just her face. But yeah, I do have like tiny little different versions of sizes of bottles as well.
So this little challenge then is a prototype for a later project then. There you go.
It's a possibility. I'm not very good at sculpting things that small. But hey,
Yeah.
maybe I can get your help. Because you've been doing so much of that changing of your models, maybe. If I can't figure it out, maybe we can figure it out together.
Yeah, we probably could. You just have to, like, you set your expectations, right? I think that using these bottle caps, like folding it in half, you'd be able to create a decent, like, necklace without it being too overly sized.
It would be kind of cool to make one just like, my eyeball necklace, but with these heads. Because I have a full eyeball, like, pearl necklace, but with, these heads would be kind of cool.
Yeah, the only thing about bottle caps is, you guess you gotta watch out for the sharp edges.
Honestly, now that they've been painted, there aren't any sharp edges.
Really?
Yeah, which is nice. Because, I saw also on Pinterest while I was looking at bottle caps is how to make roses. And they're like,
Oh.
they do fold them and cut them out. I think Dad might have the tools to do that, which I might do one day too. It'd be kind of very goth to have.
You probably just need some pliers and some tin snips, right?
Yeah, and then like there's one tool I might need to get, and that's like it's a ball rounder kind of. It makes a round shape.
Oh.
Because it's a little bit of a ball, but I don't think it would be that. I mean, it's tools. I'm gonna buy tools. Period. That's who I am.
Right.
Lee Valley catalog came in, and I wanted something from every single page, and they have resin and stuff now. Damn it! I was supposed to be looking for Dad.
Right. Yeah. It's dangerous. It's a slippery slope.
Then again, if I buy you guys something, it's mine too.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, because we get to share tools.
I don't mind sharing tools. I steal from Dad and Mom all the time.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not going to steal your food. That's your food, but I will borrow your tools.
You can't have that food back either.
No, I'd rather not, thanks. Ew.
You.
So what did you do with yours? I see the pictures, so I already know the answer, but...
Yeah, spoilers, jeez. I'm
Gee,
the
I
one
know.
that brings up the pictures to the link dump, so I always get to see everything beforehand, and I have it up so that we can discuss with a visual aid. And so when anybody that looks in the link dumps, that stuff that you see there, that's what we're looking at as well at the same time. So,
Okay,
not a big surprise. My project I did over 2 days. I could have taken more time, but I'm a procrastinator at heart, and I had a lot of other stuff that I was doing. A lot of miniatures that I was painting over the last 2 weeks. So I had my D&D session on Sunday, and then I fully completed this project from Monday and Tuesday before I made myself get ready for work. So a limited amount of time. I probably could have put some more into this. It definitely feels to me like it's a beta of a project that I would actually be consider a completed project and something I would be proud to put on the table. So this one, the other thing is that I haven't actually made buildings, completed buildings, for a long time. Yeah, I can't actually remember the last time I made a full completed building. So it was nice to get back into it, I guess. There's definitely some things that if I'm going to be reiterating on this kind of project, I'll know for the future. And I could have still improved this one too if I put more time into it, but regardless, the results are as I've got shown here. I am actually quite happy with how some of the project turned out, because what I did is I took the Coca-Cola container as a cardboard container for glass bottles of Coca-Cola and the cardboard collectible card game pieces, and I made a barn out of it, or at least some sort of rectangular structure. with shingled roofing. And the thing that I did actually like that turned out well was the shingled roofing. I've done that before on a few other projects, and it still holds up well. It's kind of how I will proceed with shingled like wood or cedar shingled roofs. It's got texture to it, which the cards don't have. I had to add that to it. Most of the stuff here is just the cardboard from the container and the cardboard from the cards. The only thing I really added was some popsicle sticks to give a little bit of framing, give it some texture, because there was no texture whatsoever on any of that cardboard.
What did you add for texture on the roof?
Sand.
Oh.
Yeah, very rough grain sand. It's used generally to texture bases of models. So I put the shingled, like the way I do the shingles, I cut up the cards, and much like you would actually have shingles on your roof, I would cut a strip, then partially cut that strip into what would resemble a shingle and layer them. So there's multiple layers of these strips of shingles. Basically, I just shingled it as you would a house, alternating so that they wouldn't have like rain all go down in one slot and stuff like that. And I was fine with making it a little bit shoddy because I wanted it to look a bit weathered as a barn. So I was okay with the roof having parts where it's like lifting up or looking a little bit less than ideal. I wasn't trying to make it completely uniform.
I don't think people will get that making things look lived in is a little bit more difficult than making them look perfect.
It takes an extra step, right? And that's something that I could definitely, like, if I wanted to put more weathering on this project, that would add a lot more to the texture of it, because I could put a lot more weathering on the wood parts. Like, if I wanted to go full out and make this something that would, like, if I was going to be putting this on a display, what I would have done is covered the entire thing with wood. I would have just taken those popsicle sticks and layered every single part of it, so it would have had wooden walls, basically. But that was a lot of time and effort to do all of that I wasn't really willing to put in for this one building. The other thing is, like, if I was going to be making this for myself, just like as a part of my regular terrain features, I probably wouldn't have made it as tall, because it would, I think, have actually looked quite a bit better if I'd maybe cut it in its height by half. Would have made it fit in a little bit more and have like less smooth space, because that's my issue with it, is that smooth space from the cardboard really kind of irritates me.
Yeah, because it doesn't look real.
Yeah, it doesn't have like any kind of wood grain on it like popsicle sticks do, or balsa wood. It doesn't have like anything there, but it's a barn, so it shouldn't have windows or like a patio or anything like that. The only thing it really should have are like hatches, which I've got one that I added to on the back, and wood paneling and stuff like that. So
they usually have a hay hatch up top
on the roof. Yeah, I did think about that, but I wasn't going to go all out on that one.
Yeah, that's fair. I still think it looks good for a 1.0.
Yeah, it is certainly a 1.0, and it turned out very similar to, I have a few tents that I made. Maybe I'll share those at some point later, that I definitely consider my shitty tents. And I only bring out my shitty tents when people are raiding like a goblin camp or something like that, or there's just like a hobo encampment. But because I made those shitty tents, I have some ones that I'm actually quite proud of, and I use those in basically everything. They look a lot more like structured and military style tents. So I do consider this as like a stepping stone. I think I will put in some more effort to make some more buildings. One of the reasons why I haven't been constructing buildings for so long is because of the setting of my campaign. It hasn't been necessary. The guys have been out in wilderness, and so any buildings that may have existed have been in settlements that are not a threat. Like there's no violence in these settlements because it's actually magically prevented. So there hasn't been a possibility of an encounter where there's a whole bunch of buildings I've had to incorporate, and so I've just been using my buildings that I had available to me from Warhammer Fantasy Battles. But if the guys were to be in a more populated area or a rural neighborhood, like at least now I do have a barn, because they've been in barns several times before, and they've even had encounters there that I've used the interiors of, or just role-played it out. I bring out a battle map for it. So I at least do have a barn to represent that at the moment. But this has definitely gotten me motivated to try building more buildings and like actually putting some more effort into it. So this is my 1.0. I will probably be putting more effort into making buildings in the future so that I can have myself a little township of buildings I've entirely created. The actual of what I did with this project, whether I'm happy with it or not, I cut off the handle of the Coca-Cola cardboard container. I split it up into two, and that's what I used to create the eaves for the front entrance. And I stuck it all together with masking tape and some strong packing tape just to give it some structure, make sure that the collapsible cardboard container didn't collapse. So that would at least keep it all together. And then I used carpenter's glue, like white glue, to get the popsicle sticks and all the remaining shingles and things like that attached without having it fall off. And I painted it with an airbrush with a little bit of a rush in that regard. There's definitely, I could do another pass on this with a physical brush, which would definitely help make it look a little bit more textured. And the top of the shingles, as I mentioned, I put on some rough grain sand, and then I dabbled it with sponge. It's because at that point, I did color it black with the airbrush to give it some texture, especially that grainy asphalt texture, and that's what I used the sponge for.
When you put the sand on, did you put the sand on with glue and then paint on top, or did you add paint?
I put it on. I actually have some pictures here of. I put it on in the process. During the process, once I got the actual roof structure completed, that's when I put the sand on with thinned down carpenter's glue, thinned down white glue, and then I just sprinkled on the sand on top of that. And because I knew I was going to be airbrushing it. If I was going to be using a traditional brush, I would not be able to do that because it would just get all stuck up in the brush and it would remove itself from the surface. White glue is not sturdy enough to hold sands of grain on it while it's being brushed. So it's good enough when you're dabbing it with a sponge, but you can't brush onto when you're using that method.
Unless you completely saturate the sand with white glue.
Yeah, and even then, you would probably want a stronger glue because you're still going to ruin that brush with a bunch of sand particulates. I've certainly done that before in the past as a kid. So this time around, I could cheat it because I knew I had an airbrush. So this is the first time I've used the airbrush for this specific type of textured paint. Because before, what I would do as a kid, I would mix the sand in with the paint.
Yeah.
Right? And so I wouldn't have to use the glue. It would be just chunky paint. Though, you want to talk about a ruined brush, you might as well just throw it out right then. You're never going to use that brush again for anything else.
I think it looks very well, the colors and the texture with the paint on the roof looks pretty good. The roof was done well.
Yeah, I am satisfied with the roof. The rest of it, I have more to go. It's definitely a 1.0 for me.
Well, I did challenge you to use everything, so that's why the proportions are out.
Yes, I didn't leave any part of it behind. If I had made it the height that I think would have been more appropriate for the scale, then I would have had to have made an additional storage shed or something like that, which probably would have given it more texture for one, but it would have added a lot of time to the build. So,
well, as it was, I was making mine literally until we sat down, so I understand. I still got I got green paint all over me. I'm like a 3-year-old when it comes to paint. I get it all over myself, but not on my clothes or like the work surface. But I get it all over me.
Right. Yeah, I will say that I'm not particularly fond of like how my building turned out. It is passable depending on like the light sources. It's not very good when I've got all my lights pointed towards it, but it's passable when it's in the area where I actually play D&D. So I might actually use it in a future encounter for the guys. I usually use my stuff at least once or twice if I'm going to put some effort into it. I'll use it at least once or twice. But once I get some better buildings, I'll probably retire this one and just be satisfied with the learning experience. There are a few tricks that I do know that I could have used if I had more time, but they require some pretty extenuous drying times, and I just didn't have that.
Yeah, you don't really use a heat gun for in between drying because stuff like this would just warp the
oh yeah, you
right?
definitely couldn't do it with this kind of material for sure. But general, I don't use a heat gun at all.
I had to use the heat gun on these because it needed that many layers of paint. A heat gun can strip paint or it can dry paint, depending. Really glad I bought one.
Yeah, I basically don't use any material that's able to point a heat gun at it without it being very detrimental. Whether it be the plastic of the miniatures, resin, or the polystyrene, cardboard. Yeah, there's nothing I want to point a heat gun towards that it won't be a bad idea.
Yeah, mine was metal, so that's okay.
Yeah.
I still look at this in the green and I'm like, I really wish I had an airbrush because I've never used an airbrush. They probably look a lot cooler.
Its own texture to it.
Yeah.
The thing about airbrush is like everything you do with an airbrush, much like if you use an airbrush tool in Photoshop, it's all very soft, right? So I've definitely found that I can use an airbrush for 80 to 90% of a project, but then I need to use a brush afterwards, and that's something I didn't do with this project, and it really does show, at least to me, that there are some miniatures that I've painted almost exclusively with the airbrush, but I, at the end of it, will go in and do details with the fine brush because otherwise it feels very soft. Everything feels soft. It needs
the hard lines.
Yeah, you need some of that sharp detail on an object. So I haven't sealed this one in. I might put a little bit more effort into touching it up. Maybe you'll see the 2.0 of this next week. It's possible. It probably won't change all that, or the next time we talk, whenever that is, but it's possible that it will change, but I won't think it'll change all that much, because some of the base structure stuff, that is not going to change in the meanwhile. It might get a little bit of a lipstick on a pig coat of paint, though. Or maybe I'll just build another building.
Why not?
Yeah. Put some actual concentrated effort into it.
Do you have the guys this week or is it next week?
It's next week.
Yeah, I'm coming up, so I know what I'm doing in the next week. I'm gonna come to visit from Saturday to Friday, and what I did is Poshmark. Remember I told you I posted a bunch of stuff for sale on there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I actually made my first purchases there. So I'm like, well, this is bonus money. Might as well put it back into wardrobe because, I always need stuff that fits. I have a hard time with clothes. So I bought a shirt that's got Halloween kitty cats on it. That was really cute. And it actually fits, so that made me very happy.
Nice.
And then there was a lady that sells Torrid, which is a plus size company from the States, which we only recently got in Canada, and Poshmark's all Canada. So I was like, ooh, I want to buy something from her because Torrid's notoriously expensive, especially for shipping from the States. And I bought a maxi dress from her that fits, which I'm happy about, that I'm going to turn into a skeleton mermaid dress because I've always wanted one of those skeleton mermaid dresses. So basically they have a skeleton up to the waist and then they have the skeleton tail on the dress. But finding one my size I've never been able to do, so I'm going to make it while I'm up there.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, it just looks like basically, how the inside of a fish looks for the tail and then the inside of the skeleton of a regular person on top. So it's basically a mermaid. And then on both sides, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use bleach. And I also have t-shirt print paints as well, actual t-shirt paints for silk screening and glow in the dark and white. And we'll see how it works out. Because I've never actually painted with bleach. I have sprayed a couple different outfits I made with it, but that was more of just a very basic, easy version. And now I really want to do like hardcore, because if you put bleach on black, usually it turns red, which is really kind of interesting.
Really?
Yep. If you bleach it out to a certain point, but obviously bleach you can only leave on for a certain amount of time, then you gotta wash it, which means I might have to do it in 4 different parts because it's so long. That's just for the bleaching. Forget about the paint.
Yeah, it sounds like an extensive process.
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
I one thing we haven't talked about in here, which I'll probably bring up at some point, I made a Biohazard dress that was similar. It's a long maxi dress. That's what maxi means, is to the floor. And that one had a giant biohazard on it. And I always wanted to use this fabric that I used to use as a blackout curtain. And the blackout curtain got bleached. So on one side it was gray, and the other side it was black. So I had dyed it green. That's what I always wanted to do. So like it had this weird black to green look, which was pretty fun.
I remember that curtain.
Yeah. And I turned it into a dress. So
Nice.
maybe a time we'll easily talk about that one too.
Yeah, my plans this week, the next 2 weeks. Like for one, my vacation starts next week, like in 2 days here. Then my vacation starts. I'm off for 2 weeks. I don't have any miniatures that I need to paint. I am set basically for my next D&D session. So I think I will actually start making some buildings, and I'll have the time that I won't be painting like all these other miniatures. Like in the pictures that I've got in the link dump, the majority of the miniatures that I painted for the session are in front of the building. So I definitely painted more miniatures than I did working on the project. I'm going to make a better 2.0. That's my goal, I think. I want to make myself a respectable building that I'm proud of. And at least one of them. Maybe a few. We'll see what I have time for and energy for.
Yeah, well, I believe in you. You can definitely. And then next time we do a challenge, maybe you'll win, right? I'm not competitive at all, but I like winning.
I'm super competitive, but I can recognize when I've been beat.
Oh, that doesn't happen very often with you. I should write this down. That I beat you, that is.
Well, that's because we don't generally compete.
No.
You're a sore loser. That's why.
Yeah, but you're a sore winner too sometimes.
I certainly have been known to be.
Monopoly. Don't play Monopoly with Liam.
We haven't played Monopoly for ages. It was Battleship that I would kick your ass at.
Yeah, Battleship was good.
Yeah.
I guess we should say our goodbyes and talk about our different things. So the podcast, not only is it available on Podbean, obviously on YouTube, it looks like it's updated to Google as well. So all the other ones that I wanted to attach it to, they're slowly approving them. So
Nice.
you can download them on those. Podbean does it automatically, so it should show up. I'm going to be changing it to the new logo that I just made recently, but it's still the same thing.
Okay, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
update the link dumps and stuff like that then. If you want to send me the images, I'll get to that eventually.
Will do, for sure. And then all of the pictures, like Liam said, are here on the link dump over on Solo Quest Creative Questions. And this is number, what are we at?
7.
7. Awesome.
Yep. soloquest.ca. You can find it
And then
there.
all of our social media that I'm going to post on are New Nerd Novelties on Facebook, Instagram, and the email address, if you wish to email us, is newnerdnovelties@gmail.com as well. And thank you so much for listening to our little Creative Questions show, and I hope that you enjoy your day.
And we will definitely be doing another one of these challenges at some point in the future. Because, yeah, I'll need a run back. I'll put more time into the next one.
Yeah, for sure, and I'll give myself more time. I don't like being rushed.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this has been the brother-sister pair who bring you creative questions. Thank you so much for listening, and have yourself a great day.
Yeah. See you guys later.